Nia stood at the front door of her brand new home, keys still warm in her hand. She had worked double shifts for 7 years, saving every coin, sacrificing vacations, and skipping luxuries. That night was supposed to be magical, the housewarming where her family would finally see her dream come true. But as the hours passed, the decorated hall remained empty. The food turned cold. The balloons sagged. Nia stared at her phone. No calls, no texts, nothing. Something inside her shifted that night. Nia had spent 7 long years working harder than anyone around her. By day, she wore her nurse uniform, caring for patients with patience and kindness. But when her shift ended, she didn't rest like others. She picked up side jobs, sometimes babysitting, sometimes selling food at the market, anything that would add to her savings. Every coin she earned, she guarded carefully. She skipped vacations, ignored new clothes in shop windows, and turned down every luxury that others her age enjoyed. All she wanted was one thing: a home of her own, a place built with her sweat and sacrifice. Her family never believed in her. They laughed when she talked about her dream. Her mother often said, "You build a house. You will marry, and a man will do that for you." Her siblings mocked her too, telling her she was wasting her time. Each word hurt, but Nia refused to argue. She carried her pain silently, turning it into fuel for her determination. She told herself that one day, she would prove them all wrong. The only person who believed in her was Musa, her childhood friend. He was there whenever she felt tired or wanted to give up. When she came home exhausted, he reminded her, "Nia, your hard work is not in vain. One day, you'll unlock the doors of your own house, and they will all see what you are capable of." His words gave her strength. Even when she felt her body breaking from long hours, Musa's encouragement kept her going. Through nights of studying new ways to earn and mornings of rushing between jobs, Nia never let go of her vision. She pictured herself holding the keys, walking into a house where every wall would remind her of her struggle and victory. She dreamed of standing tall, showing her family that a woman could achieve greatness without waiting for anyone to hand it to her. 7 years passed like a storm, full of sweat, tears, and sleepless nights. And in the middle of that storm, Nia never gave up. Piece by piece, she built her savings. Brick by brick, her dream began to take shape. While her family doubted her, Nia quietly carved her path, stronger than ever, determined to rise above their disbelief. Her journey was lonely, but it was also powerful, because she was proving that determination could turn even the deepest struggles into a shining victory. After 7 years of sacrifice, Nia finally held the keys to her dream house. The walls were freshly painted, the rooms smelled of new beginnings, and every corner carried her sweat and sleepless nights. For the first time in her life, she felt like she had something that was truly hers. She wanted to share that joy with the people who mattered most, her family. With excitement bubbling in her chest, she sat at her small kitchen table one evening and began writing invitations. Each word carried hope, each line filled with love. She pictured their faces lighting up with pride when they stepped inside the home she had built with her own hands. She sent the invitations to her parents and siblings, smiling as she imagined them arriving on the big day. When she called to tell them, her voice shook with happiness. Her mother listened quietly before saying, "We will see, if we are not too busy." The words felt cold, but Nia brushed it aside, convincing herself that maybe her mother was just tired. Her father's response was even shorter. "All right, we will come," he said, without an ounce of enthusiasm. Her siblings were not much different. They laughed a little and said things like, "Wow, our sister is a big madam now." But their tone carried a hint of mockery instead of pride. Nia tried not to notice it. She chose to hold on to the promise that they would be there. In her heart, she believed that once they walked into the house, all their doubts would vanish. She imagined them hugging her, telling her how proud they were, maybe even apologizing for never believing in her. That thought alone kept her smiling as she prepared for the celebration. The following days, Nia threw herself into planning. She decorated the house with bright balloons and fresh flowers. She ordered her family's favorite dishes, determined to make them feel special. She even set a large table in the dining room, picturing everyone gathered around it, laughing and enjoying a meal together. It was more than a housewarming to her. It was proof that her years of struggle had not been wasted. Even though their voices had sounded dismissive on the phone, Nia held tightly to her hope. She told Musa, "This time, they will see me differently. They will understand how much I have worked for this." Musa smiled and said, "Yes, they will see, Nia." Her heart swelled with anticipation, convinced that the night of her housewarming would change everything between her and her family forever. The night of the housewarming finally arrived, a night Nia had dreamed about for years. She woke up early, her heart racing with excitement. She made sure every detail was perfect. The dining table was set with plates that sparkled under the soft light. The chairs were neatly arranged, and the air was filled with the delicious smell of food she had carefully chosen for her family. The living room was decorated with balloons and flowers, welcoming anyone who walked through the door. For Nia, it wasn't just a party, it was the moment she had been waiting for. The moment her family would finally see the fruit of her sacrifice. As the evening began, Nia dressed in a simple but elegant gown, checked her phone again and again, expecting to see messages from her family saying they were on their way. The first hour passed quietly, but she wasn't worried. She told herself they might just be running late. Guests often arrive slowly, she thought, and her smile never left her face. But as more time slipped by, the house remained silent. The plates stayed untouched, the glasses stood full, and the food on the table grew colder with every minute. Neighbors walking past peeked through the windows, whispering softly to one another, wondering why such a beautiful home was lit up but no guests were inside. A few even stopped at the gate and smiled politely at Nia, but when they saw her standing alone, they turned away quietly. Nia's phone stayed still on the table, not a single call, not a single text. Her hands trembled as she picked it up to check again, but the screen only showed the time. Her heart sank deeper with every second. She looked around at the decorations, the flowers, the shining table, and all she saw was emptiness. The silence in the house grew heavier as the night stretched on. Her smile slowly faded, replaced with a tightness in her chest that made it hard to breathe. Still, she said nothing. She didn't call them to ask why they weren't coming. She didn't cry or shout. Instead, she sat quietly at the edge of the table, staring at the door as if her waiting alone could make them appear. By midnight, Nia knew. Her family wasn't coming. The food was untouched, the chairs were empty, and the house that was supposed to be filled with laughter only echoed her loneliness. She felt crushed, but she swallowed her pain in silence, her heart breaking quietly in the very place she had built with so much hope. Days after the housewarming night, Nia tried to hide her disappointment behind a quiet smile. She told herself maybe her family had been busy, maybe something had come up. She wanted to believe there was a reason for their absence, a reason that didn't involve rejection. But deep down, the silence from them hurt more than she wanted to admit. She avoided talking about it, hoping the pain would fade. One afternoon, as she was returning from the market, she passed by a small group of women chatting near the roadside. At first, she paid no attention, but then she heard her name. Curious, she slowed down, and what she heard made her stop completely. They were talking about her housewarming, laughing in disbelief. One of them said, "Her family didn't even bother to go. They know she didn't buy that house by herself. A woman like her? Impossible. Some rich man must have bought it for her." The others nodded, adding, "That's why her family didn't show up. They are ashamed of her pretending to be something she's not." Nia felt as if the ground had shifted beneath her feet. She couldn't move, couldn't breathe. The words pierced her like knives. All the long nights of working double shifts, all the coins she had saved, all the sacrifices she had made, they were being erased with a single cruel rumor. Her own family, the people who should have stood proudly by her side, had refused to come because they didn't believe in her. Instead of celebrating her, they had chosen to believe lies. She walked home with heavy steps, her shopping bag clutched tightly in her hand. Inside her heart, anger and sadness twisted together. She sat on her bed and stared at the walls of her house. Every brick, every piece of furniture, every little thing had been earned by her sweat, yet her family thought it was all handed to her by someone else. That betrayal cut deeper than their absence at the celebration. It wasn't just that they hadn't come. It was that they refused to see her worth, refused to accept her success as her own. For hours, Nia sat in silence, replaying those words in her head. She felt crushed, but she also felt something new growing inside her, a quiet fire. If they could not believe in her after everything she had done, then she would no longer try to beg for their approval. The pain was deep, but it was shaping her into someone stronger. Nia could have broken down after hearing the cruel rumors. She could have cried for days, asking herself why her own family chose to believe lies instead of trusting her. But instead, she sat in the quiet of her home and made a decision. She would not waste her energy on tears anymore. Her family's doubts had already stolen one of the happiest nights of her life, and she refused to let them take anything else from her. If they thought a man had bought her house, then she would show them and the entire community that every brick, every wall, every detail of her success came from her own hard work. It wasn't an easy choice. The pain still lived inside her, pressing on her chest whenever she thought about their absence. Yet every time she remembered their betrayal, her determination grew stronger. She told herself, "I have nothing to prove to those who don't believe in me, but I will show them what I am truly capable of." It wasn't about revenge. It was about dignity, about claiming the respect she had already earned. Musa noticed the change in her. When he visited, he found her sketching plans, writing lists, and filling notebooks with ideas. "Nia," he said gently, "don't let their doubts kill your spirit." She looked up at him with steady eyes and replied, "Their doubts will not kill me, Musa. They will fuel me. I will rise higher than they ever imagined." Her voice carried no anger, only quiet strength. With Musa's encouragement, Nia began to think of new ways to grow. She wanted to build more than just a house. She wanted to create a life that showed her independence. She started exploring community projects, considering how she could give back and become someone others looked up to. She realized that respect wasn't something she needed to beg for. It was something she could build through action. Late at night, while the world slept, she stayed awake, dreaming of what was next. She thought about hosting events where people who truly cared for her could gather and celebrate without judgment. She pictured herself standing tall, not just as a homeowner, but as a woman who had beaten the odds. The pain of betrayal was still there, but Nia no longer saw it as a wound. She saw it as a lesson, a reminder that she did not need everyone to believe in her. What she needed was to keep believing in herself, and from that silent resolve, she found a new kind of strength, one that could not be shaken by rumors or family doubts. Nia no longer waited for her family to clap for her. Instead, she opened her doors to people who truly appreciated her journey. She decided that her house would not stay silent any longer. The very same dining table that once sat untouched during her housewarming began to shine with laughter, conversation, and warmth. She started inviting her close friends from work, neighbors who had always been kind, and colleagues who respected her. They came with smiles, gifts, and genuine excitement. For the first time, Nia felt what true celebration meant. Her gatherings were never about showing off. She cooked with her own hands, served everyone with love, and shared stories of her struggles in a humble way. People listened with admiration, often telling her how inspiring she was. They were touched not just by her success but by the way she carried it, with grace, kindness, and no bitterness. The house that once echoed with silence now rang with joy and community. Musa was always by her side, helping her organize, making sure the evenings went smoothly. He watched proudly as Nia blossomed into a woman who was not only strong but also generous. At every gathering, Nia made sure everyone felt included, no matter their status. Neighbors who had once doubted her now praised her, saying, "She built this on her own, and she still shares it with us." That respect spread beyond her street, reaching people who had never even met her. Photos from these gatherings began to appear on social media. Smiling faces, delicious meals, and the cozy beauty of her home caught people's attention. Colleagues posted about her kindness, friends wrote about her resilience, and neighbors shared how she had turned pain into strength. Soon, more people began to admire her, not just for owning a house, but for the way she built a circle of genuine love around herself. Nia never once mentioned her family's betrayal. She didn't speak of their absence or the rumors they spread. She let her actions answer everything. While they doubted her, she was busy building a new family of friends who celebrated her without envy. She showed that blood alone did not define family. Love, support, and respect did. Each gathering left her stronger. Every smile from her guests reminded her that she was not alone. She no longer craved her family's approval because she had found something better, a circle of people who saw her worth clearly. And as her story spread, admiration for her grew far beyond the walls of her home. turning her into an example of resilience and dignity. Nia's life slowly began to glow in ways she had once only dreamed of. The gatherings in her home became more frequent, and every time, someone shared a photo or story online about her kindness and strength. Soon her name started to spread in the community. People admired her not only for owning a beautiful home, but also for the way she welcomed others into it. She was known as the woman who had worked tirelessly, never giving up, and yet remained humble and generous. Her story inspired many, and her photos were filled with laughter, food, and true friendship. It didn't take long for those posts to reach her siblings. One evening, her younger sister stumbled upon pictures of Nia, surrounded by colleagues and neighbors. Everyone was smiling, raising glasses, praising her. She scrolled through comments where people wrote things like, "Nia is a role model, and her strength is unmatched." The sister's face tightened with jealousy. She quickly sent the post to her brothers, and soon they were all talking in anger. Instead of feeling proud, they felt excluded, as if Nia had found happiness without them. They began to gossip behind her back, telling others, "Don't believe what you see online. Nia is only pretending. Someone else must be supporting her." They tried to spread the same old rumor that she hadn't earned her success, but this time the community didn't listen. People who knew Nia personally spoke up immediately. Neighbors said, "We watched her leave early for work and come home late, always exhausted but never giving up. She built everything herself." Friends added, "She sacrificed so much. If anyone deserves this, it is her." Their attempts to stain her image fell flat, and instead, they made themselves look bitter and envious. The more they tried to pull her down, the more people defended her. Online, comments poured in rejecting the siblings' words. In the neighborhood, when they whispered lies, others shut them down. "Your sister is a blessing," one woman told them boldly. "You should be celebrating her, not tearing her down." Their jealousy became obvious to everyone, and soon they were the ones people began to avoid. For Nia, this shift was powerful. She didn't even need to speak. Her story, her hard work, and the love of her new circle spoke louder than any rumor. While her siblings felt left out and embarrassed, she kept living with dignity, proving that success built on truth cannot be destroyed by jealousy. Months passed, and Nia's life continued to blossom. Her home was no longer just a place of rest. It had become a symbol of strength in the community. She had built respect not through words, but through her actions. One day, while discussing new ideas with Musa, she decided to host something bigger than her usual gatherings. This time, it would not just be about friends or neighbors. She wanted to use her home to make a difference. So she planned a charity dinner, an event where influential people, business leaders, respected elders, and community members would come together to raise funds for children's education. Nia poured her heart into the preparations. She decorated her home with soft lights that glowed warmly in the evening air. The tables were covered with fresh flowers, the food carefully chosen, and the atmosphere welcoming. But this time, she added a twist. Along with the respected guests, she also sent invitations to her parents and siblings. She did not send them out of desperation for their approval. Instead, she wanted them to witness, with their own eyes, the woman they had doubted standing in her full strength. On the evening of the dinner, cars lined up outside her home. Influential figures walked in, shaking Nia's hand with admiration. They praised her for not only achieving personal success, but also using it to lift others. Her name was spoken with respect, and her generosity filled the room with warmth. Nia moved gracefully from guest to guest, making everyone feel welcome, her calm smile showing she was fully in control of her world. When her family finally walked in, they were stunned. They had expected perhaps a small gathering, but what they saw was far beyond that. Important people they had only heard about were sitting at Nia's table, treating her as an equal, even as a leader. The house they once dismissed as impossible was now filled with voices of admiration for the daughter and sister they had overlooked. Nia did not confront them directly. She did not bring up the housewarming they had skipped or the rumors they had spread. Instead, she let the evening speak for itself. Every laugh, every handshake, every word of respect was a silent reminder of what they had failed to see before. She carried herself with quiet confidence, showing that her worth needed no defense. By the end of the night, it was clear to everyone present that Nia was no longer the girl her family doubted. She was a woman of dignity and strength, and the respect she had earned could no longer be denied. The charity dinner was going smoothly, and the house was filled with laughter, conversation, and admiration for Nia. Guests praised her generosity, telling stories about how she had inspired them. She moved around the room with calm confidence, making sure everyone felt welcome. Her family sat quietly at one corner of the table, watching everything unfold. They were surrounded by people who spoke highly of Nia, and with each compliment, they seemed smaller and more uncomfortable. They had once mocked her dreams, yet now they were seeing her celebrated by the very community they thought would never take her seriously. As the evening went on, her father shifted in his seat, clearly uneasy. Finally, when there was a pause in conversation, he cleared his throat and spoke. "Nia," he said, his voice unsure. "Why didn't you remind us about your housewarming that time? Maybe if you had reminded us, things would have been different." His words hung awkwardly in the air, and the guests glanced at one another. Everyone knew what he meant, and they waited for Nia's response. Nia stopped for a moment, then turned to look at him. Her expression was calm, but her eyes carried a strength he had never noticed before. In a steady voice she replied, "Respect is not given through reminders. It's shown through actions." The room fell silent. Her words were not loud, but they carried weight. Every person at the table felt them. Her father's face tightened, her siblings lowered their eyes, and even her mother shifted uncomfortably in her chair. She continued softly but firmly, "The people who care for me didn't need reminders to show up. They came because they believed in me. I shouldn't have to beg my own family to stand by my side. If you truly respected me, you would have been there without me asking twice." Her father had no answer. The silence in the room grew heavy. The guests looked at Nia with admiration, proud of the courage she had shown in speaking the truth without anger, only dignity. Musa, sitting nearby, gave her a small nod of support, while her family sat frozen, unable to hide their shame. In that moment, the power shifted completely. The little girl they had once doubted was gone. In her place stood a woman who had built her life with sacrifice and determination. And now, with one simple statement, she had drawn a line they could no longer cross. The confrontation was over, but its impact would stay with everyone who heard it. The night drew to a close, but before the guests left, all eyes turned to Nia once more. She stood tall in the center of the room, her voice steady and full of quiet authority. Smiling politely, she said, "Thank you all for being here tonight. This house was not built on shortcuts or handouts. It was built on sacrifice, hard work, and faith." The words carried a strength that silenced even the soft murmurs around the table. Her gaze shifted, landing briefly on her family, who sat stiffly in their seats. She didn't raise her voice, but every word was clear. "If you couldn't stand by me then, when I had nothing but determination, don't expect to sit at my table now that I've built something out of it." The statement was sharp, yet calm, and it pierced deeper than any shout could have. The room erupted in applause. Guests clapped and nodded, proud of the strength and dignity Nia showed. Some even called out her name in admiration, praising her resilience and courage. Her family, however, sat in silence, their faces heavy with shame. They had no defense, no excuses left to give. For the first time, they realized they had lost something far greater than an invitation. They had lost their place in her life. Nia stood with her head high, not out of arrogance but out of hard-earned self-respect. Musa watched with pride, knowing this was the moment she had fully claimed her power. The girl they once ignored was now a woman who commanded respect without asking for it. As the applause faded, Nia gave a final graceful nod to her guests. The evening ended with her surrounded by genuine support, while her family sat quietly in the shadow of their own choices. She no longer needed their approval. She had found her own dignity, and it shone brighter than ever.